Even at the scriptedest of times, I didn't see this coming. Hey, Ali.
Hello there, Andrew Pugsley.
Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, and a Happy New Year to you. Isn't it lovely? The wind's bristling in. We feel all fresh and new.
Yes, we do. This is going live on the 1st of January, and we're recording it in real time right now. We're definitely not recording it way back in misty December.
No, we're definitely not crawling towards the end of the year with fingernails.
No, we're not all just in desperate need of a holiday. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. I got every present I wanted. I was spoilt rotten. I'm going to Hawaii.
Wow!
I know.
That is amazing.
How was yours?
Just the same. I'm also going to Hawaii. Bad news. Sorry. But don't worry, I won't get in the way of you and your husband. Okay. You will hardly notice I'm there.
Okay, excellent. Booked with gooseberry.com.
Yeah. Amazing. We had some great kids' Christmas shows.
Yeah, we did. They were really sweet, weren't they?
We always love doing the kids' show. It's so crazy.
It is true magic as well. Making theatre for little people is brilliant at the scriptedest of times. But for kids who are in control of adults for an hour, I mean, that's the dream.
Absolutely. And let's just take a moment to reflect on the phrase at the scriptedest of times. I love it. I'm going to use that a lot more from now on. Even at the scriptedest of times, I didn't see this coming.
Oh, improv. You got to love it for kids and adults alike.
Absolutely. Who's our guest this month, Ali?
Oh, it's the incredible Jon Robyns with a CV as long as your arm.
Depending on what font size you print it out at.
And the length of your arm. but he is quite amazing. Both sides of the desk, as it were.
Yeah.
Being a writer and musical theatre actor himself.
He's done all the big roles. He's done comedies, he's done series, he's done Valjean, he's done The Phantom, he's done Avenue Q, he's done everything.
Not a lot of comedy in Valjean, but he did squeeze out what was there.
Yeah. Oh, there are moments.
Yeah. And really brought the sombre to Avenue Q as well, I felt.
Yeah. And now, sadly, you are not in this episode, Ali. I mean, you're obviously here right now, but you were sick when we were recording, so we just did it without you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Cut me to the quick, pal. But no, it's good. Sometimes I lose track of the timeline of these events, and I sometimes think we've just been in a DeLorean, flashing back and forward, recording intros, outros, podcasts at various times of the year. But it's all for joy and entertainment.
Is this a complaint that I make you record episodes and then say, oh, Ali, we need to do the intro to that episode for March
at
a completely different time?
No, goodness, no. As long as I don't have to do the admin of the timeline, it's all good.
Okay, great. Well, it is definitely January the 1st today, or sometime after January the 1st, if you're not one of those listeners who listens to our podcast the second it drops. And why would you be one of those?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I'm just like looking at my Spotify like, come on.
Where are you? I still haven't uploaded it is the problem. I'm still doing the final edit.
Yeah, but, well, exactly. But these things take time to be perfect. And you can get it on other platforms as well, not just Spotify.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's available wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, why don't you drop us a line at the Showstoppers on X, formerly known as Twitter. Tell us where you listen to your podcasts and we'll do something with that information.
Yeah, great market research, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't know what we can do with that, though. Say we find, everyone listens to it on Pocket Casts on Android. What do we then do with that?
I don't know, like put it in the DeLorean engine and use it for fuel or something?
Okay, great, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Right, 88 miles per hour, let's go.
Yeah, we recorded this episode way back in 1988, October, I think.
October, you're right, yeah.
Backstage. Before one of our West End shows, Duncan Walsh Atkins was on the keys.
And brilliant Susan Harrison stepped into my shoes.
She is the stunt alley for this and indeed last month's episode back in November.
She's so brilliant because Sue and I are similar that's really hard to say, isn't it? Sue and I are similar shoe size, which we often found out when we were playing Ugly Sisters at Panto by putting each other's boots on.
And also we've just found a new tongue twister for tonight's show.
Yes, we have, yeah. So enjoy this episode with lovely Jon Robyns and Sister Susan Harrison.
Selling shoes.
By the seashore.
It's Jon Robyns. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. You are right now, not right now as we speak, you're sat here, but you are currently the Phantom.
I am. This evening I will be, yeah.
You would be the Phantom. And you are one of a few guests we've had who've done the big double of Valjean and the Phantom.
Yeah.
Which all, to me, seems like just the platonic ideal of a West End leading man.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, it really only is the facial hair that differentiates which one you're doing. You're not allowed facial hair for Phantom, and they actively encourage it for Valjean. So.
Yeah, and whiten it up during the show as you age.
Yeah, it's an hour's worth of makeup where you make him look like he's lived in a sewer his whole life. But yeah, it's some whitening, some contouring. I look better with the makeup on, to be perfectly honest.
A few of our guests who've been in leading roles in shows have talked about the joy of reaching leading parts, and also the responsibility of of heading up these massive, like, globally famous shows.
Well, it's the pressure is a privilege adage, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you get the opportunity to do these things that you wanted to do for 20 years, but you also have to show up and do these things that you wanted to do for 20 years. So it is both those things concurrently. Yeah. So it's what I always wanted to do. I didn't think I was doing musicals when I was growing up because I'd never really heard of them, and was going to do straight acting, and then I was going to do opera, and then I got this scholarship to go to a musical theatre college, so I did that and sort of just stumbled my way through my career. I don't think I really made a decision for myself until about 10 years in, because you just take opportunities, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to get a foothold in, can I make this a living? But I'd worked for Cameron Mackintosh for several times, and when they approached me about doing Valjean, it was a year's worth of sort of training and auditions and workshops, and just them testing me out and prodding me every couple of months to make sure I could do it.
Oh wow, a year!
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a year's worth audition process. Yeah, but yeah, and then the Phantom is it's a completely different beast to anything I've ever played before. In that you're not really in the show. You are doing your own separate show with the actress playing Christine. And everyone else does this other show about you that you're not in. So it's really odd. But it's got to be the most opulent, the most classical musical juggernaut show I've ever been in. And it's a real honour to be sort of standing in it with all the rest of the company.
If it's a year-long process to be Valjean, what's the process to be Phantom? Or do they have a kind of trade system where it's like, well, you've been Valjean, that means you're qualified for Phantom?
I think they do think that way. I only had a week between the show, between finishing Les Mis and starting Phantom. And I now know that they are so different and so, in some ways, juxtaposed opposites that I could have done with a year prepping it, right? But you take the opportunities when they show up, right? I couldn't say, could you just give me a year and I'll be back? They said, let's go, and you just kind of say, yeah, all right.
Yeah, amazing. And so you were learning the role whilst still being Valjean in the evening?
I was personally, officially, no, I didn't overlap, but I was doing lots of homework before whilst I was playing Valjean. I love homework. It's sort of the bit I like most. Sort of the digging around. I know I had a week off, and then we started rehearsals and had 3 weeks rehearsals, and then was on in April.
It's fascinating, that like year-long audition process. Was it very much kind of like back and forth, and you were doing other jobs during that time?
I was doing Hamilton at that point.
Oh, wow. Amazing to fit that all in.
Yeah, but I was playing King George, so I was only on stage for 8 minutes a night, so I had plenty of opportunity. I learnt after leaving Hamilton that in the times in my dressing room whilst Hamilton was going on, dressed as King George, rehearsing the Valjean material in my dressing room, the front of house staff could hear me. So they weren't surprised when I told everyone that I was doing Valjean. They went, "Yeah, we've been listening to you for a whole year." So yeah, I was doing the homework on that one earlier, but I understand it. I mean, I've done Les Mis a lot, and it's sort of the central tentpole of my career, I think.
So you were Marius and then Enjolras
Enjolras.
and then worked your way up. The Marius, Enjolras, Valjean pipeline.
I just think get older. Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if there's anyone else. I don't think there's anyone else that's done those three.
Yeah.
So it's a real honor to be asked to do any of them, but to be asked to do more than one is a show of faith by that company.
Yeah, amazing. And that they knew you that well already, but it was still such a lengthy process to get there.
Because it does feel like a step up, not only in terms of stage time from Marius to Valjean, although Marius does the longest stint in the show because he does an ensemble track first and then he's Marius and he's alive at the end, which is unlike everyone else. So he's still alive. There's only two of them. Everyone else is dead. Spoiler alert. But yeah, it does feel like a step up in terms of responsibility and in terms of leading the show. It's important that you do all the press and it's important that you are there leading the company, not just physically, but also metaphorically.
So that must have been quite a wrench when you left, like having been so sort of close to the show for so long.
I'd wanted to do Valjean for my entire career. It was something I really worked towards. And then I got to do it for 6 weeks, then COVID.
Right.
So, it got interrupted and I had built up this thing of, right, I'm going to knuckle down, and I'd spent a year prepping for this and 20 years thinking about it, and here we go, and stop. So it was an odd feeling. And then I was, the Les Mis didn't close technically between closing and stopping for lockdown and reopening in May 21. Yeah. So technically, I was on contract as Valjean that whole time. Right. So I was still in contact with the office and the rest of the company. There were lots of Zoom meetings like everyone else. So, it was still in the back of my head and I was still doing it most days in my living room. Right. Just to sort of keep it going. Because it's a muscle. These, singing that sort of thing 8 shows a week is a muscle.
Yeah, so, and we had no idea when when things were going to be lifted, right?
So,
I guess you need to be match fit all the time.
Well, yeah. If they'd have said, we're on next week, then, I needed to be going. So I do equate being a West End 8 show a week hoofer to being an athlete. Yeah. Footballers train every day. They don't just play once a week. They train every day hard. Yeah. And sometimes they're injured and sometimes they miss games. And that's the same as when your voice is tired and you miss a show. Yeah. But yeah, and then going back and doing reopening, being part of the shows that reopened after COVID was a big thing. And I think the Les Mis concert was the first show in the West End that opened. Maybe not the first show, but certainly the first West End show. Yeah. So that was a big responsibility, and you could really feel the weight and the expectation and the delight that people had when they came back and were watching shows again. I will never forget, because Les Mis starts with this big bum 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 bum, right? Yeah, that famous thing. And they said the tannoy announcement came out: turn off your phones, please adhere to this. It was really long because obviously they had to get in all the code regulations. And they went, welcome to Les Miserables, and the audience went mental. And then when you get the bam bam, I'd never heard a noise like it. Yeah. And this is a half full auditorium. Yeah. Wow. It wasn't even a sellout because obviously you couldn't sell out because you had to space people out. It was like everyone took a collective sigh and deep breath and okay, here we go, which was lovely. So in my time at Valjean, I will always be the COVID Valjean, won't I? Right. I'm always going to be that guy. Yeah. So I really felt like it heightened it in importance, not just to us, but to the community and the audience.
Yeah. What point did they restage and reorchestrate it? Were you with the old staging, new staging?
So I did Marius in the original staging, right? As part of the 23rd cast in the West End in 2008, and then I was Enjolras. That was the first Enjolras of the new staging. Right. So we spent 6 weeks in a very large rehearsal space with a very large rehearsal set, reinventing the wheel. And it was the most painful 6 weeks of my life.
Oh, really? Because you knew it so well, and then you're
everyone
reprogramming.
Did, yeah. I mean, the guys who were directing it, James Powell and Lawrence Connor, had both been associate directors of the original production and been in it as actors themselves. Oh, wow. You've got all the creatives who were embroiled in the original production and about 6 or 7 of us in the cast who had done the original production. So you're looking at it and you're going, well, I know how this goes. And you have to disqualify that in your head. And Les Mis was such a very RSC organic process of the production grows out of the writing as it's being written, as it's being staged. It was just, they took months and months and months to put this thing together. So anything on stage was a direct interpretation of the piece. So now you take the piece in itself and you have to reinterpret it to be something else. So you kind of go, well, that's the good idea. What are we going to do? So there was an awful lot of that to come out. What I think has been produced and is now the production has an awful lot of worth and value and gets to the heart of what the narrative of the story is, in some places a lot quicker and a lot better than the original production. There are things that are missing. The Revolve was a massive narrative tool, which is completely disqualified from using. So that is a shame, because that had real impact, And
was such an iconic part of Les Mis, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for not having the Revolve anymore?
New designer. IP. You can't.
Right,
Legalities, I think.
Yeah.
Also, the first production was designed to be a tour. So it's a lot easier to tour without a Revolve.
Yeah.
And, the original production did tour in the mid-90s, but it took 2 weeks to put it into whatever theatre you were going into, and it was there for 3-4 months at a time. So the get-ins and get-outs were quick, were very lengthy. This cut down the get-in and get-out time. So it was partly logistic, partly financial, partly legal. But either way, what it is now is it has worth, has value, is impactful. I mean, Les Mis on the page. I don't want to spend hours talking about this because I could. But Les Mis on the page works. Like when we did the concert post-COVID, just standing there singing the material. The story doesn't make sense as much, but it's still as impactful as you want it to be.
I mean, I think a lot of us grew up watching that VHS of the 10th anniversary concert. Certainly for me, I think that's probably my introduction to musical theatre, really.
Lots of people,
yeah.
Well, that's why Les Mis is such a massive global brand, is because it was at the perfect time for bits of technology to take it around the world.
Yeah.
Not every other show had the backing or the money or the ability to do that. I mean, now if a new musical opens, it's shouting in a room full of a lot of other people shouting. And, social media, for all its wonder, is just a big room full of people shouting about their thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in the late 80s and early 90s, if you could get it on VHS, if you could get it on television, that reached millions of people by itself.
Yeah.
So, I think that time, the big mega musical was just a golden time for the West End, for Lloyd Webber, for Cameron, and that they got these things done was fantastic and has lasted for generations.
Yeah. You said Valjean was something you wanted to play for 20 years. Has acting and performing and singing always been in your bones?
Yeah. I mean, my mother tells me this story about when we were at the local Jewish community centre, and underneath the band was on stage. They were doing their thing, and you looked under the band, and there was a little 3-year-old sat on the feet of the lead singer, looking up at him eating this enormous orange, and that's me. So I just gravitated towards the stage, and was always happy with people looking at me, and was always happy showing off. And as a person, I'm very confident and forthright, but I'm certainly not a show off. But as a performer, you have to inadvertently say to an audience, it's okay that you look at me for 2 hours. And I'm going to take you somewhere.
Yeah. I don't think I've asked you this, Suze. Were you a big stage kid as a child?
I was always into drama, just in terms of like the local sort of Amdram. I was always involved in some sort of local show. For sure. Yeah, and even before that, I was making up long, boring plays and making my mum and dad watch them. That phase? When you're really little.
Did you charge them for it? My kids used to make tickets and charge me to come into my own living room to watch a show they put together.
I didn't. I missed a trick there. But we put posters up to advertise it around the house, obviously. So we did, did the groundwork, did the marketing. But so was always really, really into performing, and whether that was at school or in the local little groups and stuff.
Yeah.
What about you?
Similarly. I can't really think of a time when I didn't want to be a singer or an actor.
No, I mean, you must have had conversations with careers advisors at school, and they said, "No, come up with a proper job." And I vividly remember going, "No, I'm going to do this," and they said, "Yeah, but what if that doesn't work out?" And I said, "Well, we'll figure it out then." I had no other skills.
Yeah.
I had nothing else.
It was my daughter's 6th birthday party a couple of days ago. She's also sort of fairly extravagant and show-offy.
Sure.
But she, at the morning, we got everything planned out for the party. And she said, "By the way, Daddy, because you are a shower," which is her...
Gorgeous.
Because you are a shower, when everybody comes around, you're going to stand on the sofa and do a show for everyone. Like, actually, no, that's not the plan today.
My daughter's nearly 13 and would never want me to do anything in front of her friends, even like walk or exist.
I'm sure.
So please make the most of it now.
I did not stand on the sofa and do a show.
But did she do a show?
No, she didn't.
Oh,
she swanned around the party and introduced everyone, and then went up to her bedroom to have some time by herself.
Sure.
Oh.
Sort of came back down to grace it with her presence again and check
like
everyone was okay.
To me.
Yeah, very much.
Sounds like very enviable.
So what was your first big job? You always had the bug. What opened the door to a career?
I don't know. I guess you sort of look back afterwards and go, "Oh, that was important," and "Oh, that was important." I got my first job before I left college. I auditioned for the tour of Miss Saigon. Whilst I was doing my 3rd year at Mount View, and got that and left college slightly early to go and do that.
Wow.
But I guess the first break was Avenue Q.
Yeah, absolutely. In the West End.
In the West End. That was my West End debut. Leading a Broadway transfer. Had no idea that it was going to be such a big deal. And I was 22, so which might not sound young to some of our listeners, but I'm 40 now, so that it feels quite young. And leading a brand new musical at 22 now, if I was doing it, it would scare me. But at the time, I was like, sure, why not? And it was so different. Did you see Avenue Q? You ever seen it? You know what it is?
So you had to learn puppetry as well, presumably?
Yeah, that was a long audition process as well. Not a year, but it was 5 months of puppet school.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Wow, 5 months. That's nice.
Yeah, it was back and forth. It wasn't a solid 5 months, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would have loved to do a solid 5 months.
Imagine.
School. No, it's back and forth of, come back, do 2 weeks later, come back to,
Right.
That was, it was incredibly fun because learning a new skill is always fun.
Yeah.
And learning something that I think because of things like the Muppets and Sesame Street is ingrained into you somewhere. Mm-hmm. Like when they told me how they run, you have your arm at a right angle and you bob your elbow up and down, and that's how they run. And you think, of course, I've seen them run across the screen.
Yeah.
I know what panicked Muppets look like.
Yeah.
So if you can clock into that zany feel, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, amazing.
And the rest of the cast were all my sort of age, and we were just having the best time.
Yeah.
Without really realizing that it was this massive deal at the time. And people when we show up at a bar as a cast, people would be like, "The Avenue Q lot are here. They're here. They're here." And I'd be like, "What? Is this a big deal?" So that was nice. That was a nice feeling at the time. But it was a great cast: Giles Terrera and Simon Lipkin and Julie Atherton and Claire Foster and Anne Harada, who was the original Christmas Eve from Broadway, and and Sean Lloyd. And just this, and Luke Evans, the movie star, and Matt Henry at OBE.
Yes.
Wow.
And Gabriel Vick, who's playing Miss Stoutfire now, and it was just a launchpad for lots and lots of really brilliant people.
Yeah, I think I caught it whilst the original cast were all still in it, and I still remember now, which is what across the board, what an amazing cast it was.
It was just one of those shows and one of those casts that I think I've only been in maybe 2 or 3 times since, where you were happy to throw the ball to anybody.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to think, are they going to catch this? You just chuck it at them, and not only they're going to catch it, they're going to make something really good with it and throw it back. Yeah. So that is the nicest way to work.
Yeah.
It's such a nice feeling when you have an ensemble like that, isn't it? And particularly if you're doing a long run as well.
Right, because, the part of the skill of doing a long run in the West End is how do I keep this fresh? Not just do I understand what I'm trying to convey, but also how can I keep it alive so that everyone else feels like it's new? That is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
Totally. And keeping it new for yourself as well. And
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes you are just operating on, I know this muscle memory works, and I know that this happens, and I know this happens, and you get to the end of the show, and it's like a drive you've done 100 times, and you think, what happened? Did I do it? I did it. Fine. So that does happen, and you'd have to battle against that, because being awake and being alert is the ideal. But I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen that you go through shows on muscle memory. The trick is not to make it look like you're going through shows on muscle memory.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With Avenue Q at the time, I mean, I'm just horrifyingly realizing that was 20 years ago now.
Yep.
I think we're probably the same age.
Yep. You've got better hair than me.
Well, you're too kind. You've got better everything else. Back then, like, Avenue Q had that real subversive energy about it. Of course, now it's, so much stuff has been inspired by it, but it really was the naughty show that was doing stuff that hadn't been done before.
Right, it really raised the bar on, oh my God, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
And I feel like that bar has been raised again by Book of Mormon and again by various other shows. Bobby Lopez has a lot to answer for. But yeah, at the time, I mean, one of the most joyous things in my entire life has been simulating sex with two puppets and having the audience point at you, nudge the person next to them and go, oh my God, what are you looking at? What always made me laugh is everyone's looking in the same direction, and yet it's so crazy and so outrageous and so entertaining that you have to tell the person next to you, who is already looking at it, to look at it. And you think, that's just perfect. That's a perfect thing.
Amazing. Oh, tangent. Sorry to tell another 6th birthday party anecdote. At my daughter's 6th birthday party, I was in charge of the party soundtrack. I put on, because it was an under the sea party, I put on the Little Mermaid soundtrack.
Fabulous.
Totally appropriate for a group of mainly 6-year-old girls. The streaming system then, chose its own subsequent albums. Went on to Frozen next, absolutely fine. Something else, and then with horror, at some point later on in the party, I realised that it was playing to the assorted group of 6-year-olds and their mums, Hasidiga Eberweib from the Book of Mormon.
Great.
Literally the worst possible choice.
Again, that's Bobby Lopez's The Venn diagram of Frozen and Book of Mormon.
Absolutely, yes.
So
yes, that'll be why it chose.
That's why it's gone there.
Lopez again. I think I stopped it in time. I don't think anybody else noticed. I think the party was loud enough that I just saw it on the screen and managed to stop it. But that really was dashing across the room before that particular repeated refrain came up.
Sure.
You were in a roadshow.
Yes, that's another one of those casts where you could trust anybody.
For context, for listeners who don't, roadshow, Stephen Sondheim's last musical while he was alive, the Many
Chocolate Factory in North London. Yeah.
And did you get to meet Sondheim? We're always keen for a Sondheim story.
Oh, sure.
There's always
I've got a couple of Sondheim stories for you if you like. The dress rehearsal for that was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Where you had Stephen Sondheim, John Doyle, who was the director, who had Tonys coming out of every orifice, and Jonathan Tunick, who is the orchestrator for a lot of Sondheim shows, sitting in a row looking at you as you sing their work.
Whoa.
And I have a vivid image of Sondheim sort of stretched out over several chairs with his head tilted to one side as you do his lyrics and music, and it's just terrifying. And I had a conversation with him afterwards when we worked on the character, and it was really his first. The character I was playing was called Hollis, and it was an overtly gay relationship that wasn't about being gay. It was just two men who loved each other, and off you go. So, I was talking to him in depth about that, and he was saying about the prejudices he'd felt and the closetedness he'd felt in the early part of his career, and how that developed, and how he's, exercised those things through his writing. But the thing is, he was 80-something when I was having this conversation with him, and, he could barely see. He's got very slitty eyes.
Yeah.
And he kind of grumbles like that. Yeah, you talk to Steve, and he talks like this. And it's quite hard to have a flowing conversation with him. So, also, anything you think of to say sounds stupid.
Yeah, sure.
You can't sound smart next to Sondheim.
It's like talking to musical theatre god now.
It's like talking to Stephen Fry. There's nothing you can say that you go, hey, you know what, Stephen? He knows it. So there's nothing I could say. There's nothing I could do. So I just sort of let him talk and try and remember and take in as much of it as I could.
Yeah.
My other Stephen Sondheim story, which doesn't actually involve Stephen Sondheim, was on the day of his death, which was a weird weird day for me. I got a phone call in the half-hour call of Les Mis, where I'm getting all the makeup and the wigs on to play Valjean. And it's Cameron McIntosh calling me, and he says, "John, are you alone?" And I say, "Yeah." He says, "I need to tell you something in confidence. So if there's anyone else in the room, they have to leave. And you just keep this secret." And I said, "Okay." He said, and this was before the news had broken.
Yeah.
He said, "Stephen Sondheim's just died in New York. I have a deal with the New York Times on an international embargo on this news until 10 o'clock tonight. I'm in New York. I need you to read something out at the curtain call from me."
Oh, wow.
Addressing this.
Yeah.
And Cameron has never been anything but decent and wonderful and kind to me, but he's still Cameron McIntosh, So I'd never heard this tone with him where you take out that it's Stephen Sondheim and it's Cameron McIntosh. It's two guys who've known each other 50 years and he lost his best friend, So there's a vulnerability in his voice that I'd never heard. And he texted me what it was he wanted me to say, and I had to go through this show from 7:30 until 10:30, being the only one in the theatre in the country that knew that Sondheim had died.
Wow.
And sing Bring Him Home and go through this emotional show that Les Mis is. And that at the curtain call, everyone's saying in the wings before you go on to bow, "Do you know Sondheim's died?" I say, "You've got to say something, you've got to say something." And I was like, "I've got it here, right here, it's fine." But that was a weird day.
Yeah, wow.
That must
It
have
was
been
a weird
so
night.
surreal. Yeah.
I'll never forget doing that. And then the words that I read to the audience, I didn't make it through without crying, just because you're speaking the words of a man who's lost his best friend, which is incredibly powerful. So that was a funny day. So yeah, one alive Stephen Sondheim story, one not alive Stephen Sondheim story.
It's good we've got the whole range.
Roadshow was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Roadshow was I had a funny start with it as well, because I actually turned it down because the opening night was the same night as my brother's wedding.
Oh, wow.
And he was getting married in Italy. And so I said, I'm so sorry, I can't do that. So I went, and it was really, really tough. And because the Menier is a place everyone would like to work, regardless of the fact that they pay terribly, but you don't care. Because you get to work with Stephen Sondheim and Don Doyle and this cast and Mike Gibson and David Badella and these guys. Yeah. And, and I was desperate to do it. And I said to my brother, "Look, I really need to do this. Is there any way I can?" And he went, "No, you're my best man and my brother. I need you at my wedding." He said it nicer than that. So I turned the job down, and they moved opening night for me.
Nice.
Which was nice.
That's the
incredible.
best end result to that. Like that never happens. That's amazing.
Yeah. David Babani, who runs the chocolate factory, was adamant that I was back the next night.
Yeah.
So I did 24 hours without sleep, flying to Lake Como.
Oh, wow.
Did the wedding, threw back at 4 a.m., got back, did the show in the evening.
And opened a Stephen Sondheim show.
I was younger then. I couldn't do it now. God, I need to sleep now. But I was 28 then, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
That was a crazy time.
Also, wedding in Lake Como, very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. My brother does not do what we do.
I was just about to ask.
That was very. You did not need to tell us that.
No, he is a very well-off muggle.
Awesome.
And he's incredible at his job. Don't ask me what it is. No idea. Computers. But yeah, he's wonderfully successful, and we're very close, which is nice.
So having done naughty upstart shows like Avenue Q, worked with Stephen Sondheim, done the double pinnacle of musical theatre leading man in Valjean and Phantom, is there a role that you are desperate to play that you haven't played yet?
No, I mean, I've ruminated on this for a long time, and I feel as though the industry expects me to stop.
Right.
Because
you've done it now.
You've done it now. You've completed it. You've completed it. You can retire. Which is both humbling and very complimentary, and also incredibly terrifying all at once. I mean, I've always said the holy grail of musical theatre is new writing. When you get to invent, and you get to play, because taking over big roles like that, even Avenue Q, which was a Broadway transfer, was in a West End original cast, you've still got a blueprint. You're still recreating other people's artistry, which again is a skill. But inventing new stuff is really what I'd like to do. And that means doing lots of workshops of new stuff, hoping that A, it's good, and B, it goes somewhere. Which I've done both that aren't good and haven't gone anywhere. Or some combination of the two. So it's a funny thing. It's a funny old game when it comes to new writing. But I think that's really what I'd like to do.
I mean, and then now next is
excellent segue.
Well, it's almost as if, it's perfectly planned. Then now next, starring Showstopper, Justin Brett, in fact.
He really graced us with his presence, and I do not mean that with a tongue-in-cheek sarcasm. He really doesn't like doing shows, does he? He likes being with you guys and improvising, and when we give him a script, he's like, really, a script? Okay, fine. But we didn't even consider anyone else for the role, really. We put the casting breakdown out and looked at lots of other wonderful audition tapes and saw a couple of people, but it was always going to be Justin. My co-writer, Christopher J. Orton, had worked with him on Oliver, maybe, or some production that they'd done together. Or Martin Guerre, maybe. It's some Actor Muso thing. And just said, he's our guy. It's Justin. And he's versatile and wonderful, and is one of the people that you can throw a ball to, and was just a joy to have in the company as well as the cast.
We love our Justin.
We do. And it was such a gorgeous show. It was so beautiful. Was it the first thing you've written, or have you written numerous?
No, it's just the first thing I've written that got seen.
That must have been so exciting.
Yeah, it was incredibly exciting and terrifying all in equal measure. Because when you're an actor, you're interpreting someone else's thoughts. As a writer, you're going, here's a tiny piece of my soul. What do you think? Here's what I think about the world for your delectation, and that is scary.
Very exposing.
Exposing, and I mean, I'm not sure I enjoyed watching it even once.
You're right.
I saw it about a dozen times because I would like to have gone through every show, but I was doing Phantom, so. I saw opening and a couple of previews, and then some bits and pieces in the middle, and then the last show, and maybe even 10 shows. And I'm not sure I enjoyed any of them because I was so tense all the time. With what if that doesn't land, and that bit isn't quite what I wrote, and that bit isn't, and that's interesting, but it's not what I wrote. Why is that all bit?
What is Justin making up now?
There's a lot of that. They all did. It's a five-hander, and everyone added. But that's okay. Some of it, I was like, that's better than what I wrote. We'll keep that. Which is what you hope from casting people. You hope that they take it and mold it and make it into something new. But it was a learning experience for us, and a wonderful thing, because it's a miracle when any piece of writing gets in front of an audience. There are so many hurdles in the way. That I would give credit to Paul Virides, our producer, and Southwark Playhouse for taking a punt on it. And I'm very grateful to those people, the gatekeepers as they are, to allowing us to tell that story.
Will that show have another life now, or is that put to bed in a new project?
We've recorded, we've recorded the cast album. So hopefully that'll be out before the end of the year.
Amazing.
It's just getting tinkered with, how these things go. And in terms of another production, there are conversations, but again, hurdles.
Of course.
So we'll see. I mean, if it never gets seen as a full production again, we're happy that it even got done once. We're not being complacent about it. Kit, my writing partner, and I are writing new stuff that we're very excited about. Although this next one is significantly bigger, so probably harder to produce than the first one.
But then, you've got over the hurdle of having something staged.
Right, having a track record helps. You can go to, producers or financiers and say, hey, look, we did a thing. Let us do more things.
Speaking of very new writing.
Sure.
How would you like to make up a song with us?
I'd love to. I can't attest to its quality, but let's give it a go anyway.
Okay, what's this one about? Lie-ins on a Sunday, when you get to lie in. Sunday lie-ins.
The cold cold side of the pillow, that's the one for me. Lying there on a Sunday, feeling so much glee. Oh, Sunday lying, thank you for existing.
The snuggly duvet, that's the one for me. I know I'm waiting for that first cup of tea. Oh, Sunday lying, you're the one.
You can take your Mondays, your Tuesdays and Wednesdays too. Thursdays and Fridays, I've had enough of you. And all through a long dark Saturday, what I'm waiting for is the blessed dawn of Sunday morn.
Coffee, the papers, that's it for me. Biscuits, croissants, standing in the sun.
Sunday lying, Sunday lying, Sunday lying, Sunday.
The Showstopper Podcast was hosted by Susan Harrison and Andrew Pugsley. And this month's guest was me, Jon Robyns. It was recorded backstage in the West End, and it was mixed and edited by Andrew Pugsley. Duncan Walsh Atkins was on keys. Production support from Susanna Rosenthal, Charlotte Lund and Kaylee Kine at Something for the Weekend. More at showstopperthemusical.com. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.